Hello and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I am Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
Today, we are reviewing the brand new horror movie, X, from, I don't have the name of the director right in front of me.
Ti West.
Ti West.
Ti West. It's T.I., so, you can go either way. I haven't heard it pronounced yet.
There's definitely a correct pronunciation. I'm not sure what it is. From Mr. West. Called X. Adam, would you like to tell the people what it's about?
Yeah. In 1979, a group of young filmmakers set out to make an adult film in rural Texas. But when their reclusive, elderly hosts catch them in the act, the cast finds themselves fighting for their lives.
Yes.
And it's been getting some buzz, so we figured it'd be worth going to check out and doing a review of it. It also is from A24, but it's definitely a different kind of horror movie from A24. They're certainly known for more psychological, slow burn, really deep commentary on mental illness or society's ills. And, it usually ends with the character, succumbing to the darkness. And this is kind of a throwback to horror movies before all that, when it was usually just, a group of teenagers or young people and some sort of evil force chasing them. They're out on a farm, rural Texas. So I feel like this was kind of a throwback.
Very slasher-esque. Yeah, very, very much a throwback to the slashers of the 80s and 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to that, though, are we now ready for my favorite part of the episode?
Where we forget to do all that jazz?
Yes. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notifications. Ba-ding! All that jazz. It helps us out. We appreciate it. Thank you.
We do.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Moving on into what works for X.
What works for X? Who wants to go first here?
Dylan,
would you like to go first? You're kind of on set right now, it looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Live on location.
But it's a little creepy too. Maybe once night falls, I don't know what's going to go down. But yeah, right. I guess what works for me is kind of what I just talked about. The throwback feel of the movie, from the credits to the music to the way it's shot and just kind of maybe what happens. It's a little predictable. And like I said, it's almost like an homage to like those old slash movies, but I just felt like the whole vibe was fun and throwback. And like, if you need a break from Midsummer and Hereditary and The Witch and Get Out, you can kind of turn your brain off a little bit for this one and still have a good time. So that whole vibe I felt like worked really well for me.
Yeah, I like the premise of this movie a lot, where anybody who's listened to this show for a while knows this already. Anybody who's new, I don't really like slashers. They're just generally not my thing, with a few exceptions, like the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And I really enjoyed the, what was the name of that Netflix trilogy that was last?
Fear Street.
Fear Street trilogy. Yeah, like the second one, I like that one a lot. Very slasher at camp, very similar to X in that sense.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, not really my vibe. So I really liked the premise here, where it felt like they were going to dive into some more interesting social commentary on like why these kids are being killed. It's a slasher. Yeah. Some people are going to die. That's not really spoiling anything.
Yeah.
I won't tell you who.
Lives. We won't tell you who, though.
And the trailer does kind of lays everything out there for you.
Yeah.
But
right. But I was excited going into this to get maybe a smarter slasher than I'm used to seeing. And especially when the early reviews started coming in, like critics love this movie, and slashers generally are like in the 30s on Rotten Tomatoes, just like almost automatically. And so seeing some reviewers that I read or watch on YouTube a lot that I tend to agree with, I like the concept. I was excited going in, and I like the first half of this movie, kind of the build up quite a bit. I think they did a good job of laying the groundwork and kind of the constant, like that audio or TV clip that they show us a few times of like some TV pastor just preaching the good book and
talking about sinners and
exactly.
Yeah.
I like degenerates in this country.
I like the setup they were going for that. And then I really like the decision to have this in the early 70s.
Yeah, I like that
like
too.
It's 79, I think, so it's late.
70s at least.
Yeah.
But just with the kind of changing of the guard of like kind of the moral compass of this country, and with like Reagan coming up and kind of the pushback to the whole free love 60s, early 70s era. I like the year that they placed this movie in and kind of where the country was at. So I thought all that stuff was really interesting.
Yeah, I think touching on what you said, on Rotten Tomatoes, this has a 96% and a 76% from audience. So it's very highly reviewed, very highly liked. As far as what I thought what worked for me is I liked I thought it was funny. I don't find a lot of
I thought so too.
slasher movies that are like, we chuckled at the entire way through.
Yep.
Some actual like laugh out loud moments. And then so there's sort of like a meta commentary in the middle of the movie about the movie that I absolutely loved. And I thought that was really well done. And that kind of gave it that like edgier, like, we know what we're doing, we know what we're making, but it also fit the story. It was kind of a twofold. There
were a lot of winks at the audience.
Yeah, which I thought was fun, because it was like, it's a modern slasher. You have to update something about it, and that's the direction they chose to go. That's what I enjoyed.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought, the goriness and stuff. I mean, I'm not necessarily a huge slasher fan either, but I just felt like it was kind of fun to see A24 do their take on this type of horror instead of the psychological horror. It just felt very different, and it was like, ooh, that's a gross, gory death. Like, ooh,
I thought they did all those very well. I was squirming, and to quote myself, I was squeaming in my seat the entire time.
Squeaming.
That's from season 1. That's a callback.
Great callback.
But I was squirming. There was a lot of uncomfortable moments in this movie, not just the deaths.
Especially towards the end, they definitely push the envelope. I mean, there's a lot of nudity to go along with the violence in this movie, but a lot of nudity. I mean, one of the themes is sex, and like how that affects people when they age or when they can't get it, or just like you mentioned, Nate, kind of the old free love, then changing of the guard to more like conservative. Like those themes are evident in like the characters too. So I thought that was well done.
Yeah.
So moving forward, what did you guys not like, or what didn't you think worked in this? Nate, I know you kind of started off with, you liked the first half. What about the second half kind of trended the wrong direction for you?
Yeah, so I mean, simple answer is the second half turns back into a slasher movie. But it's not like I was just waiting for or dreading it turning into a slasher movie. I was disappointed. For me, I felt like the bridge between the first half of the movie and the second half of the movie wasn't really there. It just kind of flipped a switch, and I didn't feel like the groundwork was properly laid to make the actions of the killers believable. There's sort of a jump that the movie takes when, shit starts to go down. And it just kind of felt like they laid the groundwork for why, but it still didn't feel believable to me.
It's a little haphazard. I'll give you that.
It just kind of felt like, oh, we're running out of time. We got to start killing people. So close enough. Just go. And so with that, and it didn't bridge the connection with kind of the social commentary that I felt like we were getting in the first half of the movie. I felt like they just kind of abandoned that for the most part. I mean, it's still kind of there because it's still the same characters and everything, but it just really felt like, okay, we've set this up, we've made it a little bit different, and now that part's over. For those of you who are just here to see some crazy deaths, don't worry, we don't have anything else to say.
We haven't forgotten about you.
Exactly.
There is going to be some grisly murders.
Right. And as somebody who isn't a slasher fan but was intrigued by this because it sounded like it was going to be smarter, it is for a while, and then it stops trying to be.
Okay.
Got to give people what they want.
Right. I mean,
but that's because it's not
fair. I mean, it didn't. I definitely see what you're talking about with the shift, because you can definitely pinpoint like the moment that it all changes.
Yes.
And usually when you can do that, it's not necessarily a good thing if we're talking about like storytelling and stuff. There seemed like there was a middle section maybe missing, or that could have happened just to kind of make that transition a little smoother.
5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the switch in the killers. It's there.
All of a sudden they're just like, it's time.
Yeah.
It's nighttime. What did you expect us to do? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like, I think that turn, I definitely could feel that. And the plot is a little thin, for kind of what we're used to from A24. And I will agree that kind of some of the stuff that they set up in the beginning that I thought was going to be more important, just kind of, once people start dying, they kind of move on from all that. And that's okay. I guess the parts that maybe just didn't work for me are just because I'm really not into slashers in general. So when all the murders started happening, like, they were fun, but it definitely felt like you said, kind of the like it kind of dumbed itself down just a little bit. But also I was still having fun, so I don't want to take that away from it too much. But I see where you're coming from. And then I'm trying to think of what else kind of didn't. I mean, they definitely pushed the envelope in towards the end, especially. I mean, if you've seen it, you know why. And I felt like that was a little gratuitous. Like, I don't know. That was the only part where I was like, oh, okay, all right, guys. Like,
right.
I could have peeled it back a little bit, but I don't know. It didn't bother me quite as much, I think, as maybe it bothered you. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, it's just that transition in the middle. I liked all of it. I'm not a slasher fan either by any stretch of the imagination. I haven't seen all of the Freddy Krueger movies or, Halloween or any of those, like the classic.
I mean, there are like 40 of those at this point.
Exactly. There's a billion.
Yeah.
So you're going to get, you're going to get some gratuitous stuff, some bad ones, a lot of bad ones, if I'm being honest. And I think this is, if we're ranking or if we're putting some of those on a tier, I would put this towards the top half. I think it's better than a lot of those other ones. It's not as iconic as some of like the Freddy Krueger scenes, pulling somebody through a television set or through a bed. But there's a lot of, good deaths here, and there's a lot of like suspense is built up in a good way. It's just that transition of going from it's this type of movie to now it's a slasher is a little haphazard and a little stark.
Sure,
but that's
there's also a little mini twist at the end, and I felt like that was just kind of unnecessary, like regarding the backstories of one of the characters. It was just kind of like, okay, I don't really care, but like I don't know, that felt unnecessary.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. So I know we want to talk about performances. It looks like there's somebody in particular you want to talk about, Nate. Do you want to do performances first, or do you want to talk about that person first?
Let's do performances first.
All right.
So this movie is interesting to me because of the nature of the plot with young people filming an adult film in the 70s and some of the actors that we got here, because they're more established than you usually see for something like this. This is normally like kind of that stepping stone that you need to do that hopefully the movie catches on, and you got to do like nudity or a sex scene that some people are fine with this obviously, but a lot of the time it's when you have less credentials and like credibility in established movies, you have to take roles that are like this sometimes, and then later on you don't have to. And that's usually what we see in these types of movies. But with this, we get Mia Goth from Emma, and Jenna Ortega, who is having a huge moment now, and Brittany Snow from the Pitch Perfect movies, like very different from that. And Kid Cudi is in this movie.
Yeah. Yes. Kid Cudi is one of the main characters, and he actually was one of the producers as well. I saw his name show up. So that's
I would hope that fits.
Yeah. No, he was great. Even Martin Henderson, who you would definitely recognize. He's a veteran actor. Owen Campbell is RJ. I mean, but basically the three women you mentioned, Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, and Brittany Snow. Like, I was kind of surprised to see all of them in this movie. You'd kind of expect maybe one of them to be in it.
Or at least to go to the levels that they went to in this. Like, there's a lot of nudity, and it was you're more popular than that. I didn't think you wanted to or had to take your clothes off to get people to watch your movies.
But and also maybe they love slasher movies, and they were like, oh, A24 is going to make a throwback slasher movie. Like, all right, I'll be I'm down for that.
Stylized one. Let's do it.
I think the themes of the movie play a big role in who they were able to get as far as the female as the actresses in this movie as well. I read an interview with Brittany Snow that talked about how she just wouldn't normally want to do something like this, but she was kind of pitched the idea, and it just sounded so interesting to her. And they had a really good group of people kind of behind the camera that made everything feel as comfortable as possible and all kind of fit. But I mean, I thought Mia Goth was the best performance in this movie, along with Jenna Ortega, and I like Brittany Snow a lot too. I mean, really, those three are who carry this.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think Jenna Ortega and Mia Goth, they kind of trade off being like the main focus and kind of having more of an arc, or at least some depth to their character. And I thought they both did a really good job, especially as it gets towards the end. Mia Goth in particular kind of takes over, and I was like, wow, she is killing it right now in this movie. And also, who plays the old lady?
Oh god,
let me look it up.
Angeles.
Here's the problem: is I went onto IMDb and there's top cast. There's not full cast until you go a little bit further in.
I don't even see her listed
either.
This is strange. I bet
to the Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see if they've got it.
I don't see her listed on. I felt like there was a chance that was the old couple played by younger actors.
Well, it looked like Howard is played by Stephen Uri.
That's got to be the old guy.
Mm-hmm. But I thought that too, Nate. Like, is it possible it's a younger actor playing the old lady?
So here's the Mia Goth is on IMDb is tagged as Maxine and Pearl. So maybe she played the old lady.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Really?
Which is kind of strange because there's a bunch of scenes where they're together. I mean, obviously that's doable. It's just some of those scenes and how creepy they end up being. That'd be very hard to pull off, I think, to get the right emotion to come across on either of the characters. But
yeah, I mean, I'm looking it up now. And it looks like she played the old lady.
Damn!
Wow!
So it did even more than I thought she did in this movie. Like,
wow!
Definitely.
If we're wrong about that, somebody please let us know. But
yeah,
looks like that's the case.
Damn.
All right. Well, that's crazy then, because that even fits even better with like what happens in the movie, like plot wise and the themes.
Yeah, it really does.
It really does.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Mind blown. Did that just raise it half a star for me? Oh.
So
you're locked in, Dylan. You can't change your score.
I did a quick Google
maybe if I was in the studio and not out here.
Out in the boonies. Yeah. She plays both.
Incredible. Wow.
I did feel when I was watching it, like the old lady was played by a younger actress, and I thought the makeup wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm.
But it was clearly good enough to where I didn't know it was Mia Goth.
Yeah.
So I just thought both the old people were intensely terrifying to look at because they were just old and the skin was like literally falling off their bones or sunken into their bones. And I thought that like it's nobody I'd ever want to like look at for a long time or embrace. If it was my grandparents, I'd still be like, oh, this is.
They're wearing instead of farmhouse, they're wearing like old clothes. It's a whole the aesthetic is very creepy. All around.
Yeah.
I did want to focus on one actress in particular, though, because she seems to be having a moment right now, and we don't have to linger too long on here. But I mean, Jenna Ortega, I had never heard of her until January.
Mm-hmm.
And already this year, she has been in Scream, which came out in January. She was in The Fallout, which is currently on HBO Max and came out in January. Yep. She's in X, which just came out in March. Mm-hmm. And later this year, she is playing Wednesday Addams in a Tim Burton Netflix series called Wednesday.
With Christina Ricci returning to the universe, the Addams Family universe. So that'll be a nice like transition of kind of handing of the guard from Christina Ricci to Jenna Ortega, which I think would be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think Jenna Ortega became big doing like a Disney series.
Yeah, it looks like
she's been around for a while. Like she was in Iron Man 3 too as a kid. So
all right.
But so I think you see that sometimes where they kind of get this like, okay, we need to shed that label of just being in kids stuff. So let's be in like a couple horror movies and a high school drama about like PTSD.
Yeah.
And let's completely like remarket you as like a rising young star, and I think they are doing a phenomenal job. I think she's incredibly impressive.
Well, I mean,
think
we didn't know anything. Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
No, I was going to say she's seizing the opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
if that was the game plan, she definitely, you know, we reviewed the Fallout last season, and I'd recommend that you go back and listen to that podcast. But also, just if you like Jenna Ortega in this, go find the Fallout, because she is the main character and she has a lot more to work with. I mean, and I think she does a phenomenal job, like real solid acting chops. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Interesting that she got the main role in that Burton show, though.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that now after seeing her in 2 movies this year.
Yeah, that's big.
It's just it's a good job by either her marketing or her agent or whoever to get her from like a hard transition from like Disney Channel star to like serious stuff and leading lady, and you know that kind of work, because we didn't, like you said, we didn't know who she was until 3 months ago, and that's a credit to her ability and the marketability. So
absolutely
excited to see what she does.
All right, you guys want to move into the stars?
Yeah.
Who's this for? Almost forgot our last one.
Yep. I think if you like slasher films, I think you should definitely check it out. It seems to be the best new one that's come out in a while.
Definitely. I would say, you know, like I went into this hoping it would be a little, and it is a little bit different for a while, but if you just strongly don't like slashers, then I don't think this is different enough to change your mind on this
I think
one.
you'll be intrigued. You'll be intrigued by the first half, but it'll probably lose you in the second half.
Right.
Which is fair. Yeah, I think that's and if you like the other A24 stuff, the more psychological horror, I think you can probably appreciate this, but just be prepared to kind of dumb it down a little bit. However, just before we get to the stars, last thing, there is a shot involving a alligator towards the beginning of the movie that I thought was fantastic. And
Classic
was
A24.
A really great way to set the dangerous tone like right away, and just a unique way to show that. So
yeah,
I just wanted to mention that before we move on to the stars, but let's go for
it. Yeah, so give me one moment here.
Oh my gosh, missed it. All right.
We'll get that timing down.
We'll get that bit timing down. We'll be right back. All right, who wants to start?
I can go first.
Yeah, go for it, Nate.
All right. Nate.
So I'm going to give this movie a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's okay. It's got some good stuff with it inside, but part of it for me is it felt so close to being great. And I felt like it just kind of missed that. And it left me a little disappointed, mostly from the missed opportunity standpoint. I did enjoy myself for most of the movie. But I felt like there was an option here if they were able to kind of have a more seamless connection between the first half and the second half of the movie, and continue to have the second half of the movie actually relate to and talk about the themes that they brought up early on. I think there was an opportunity here for a very good horror movie, but for me, it just kind of turned into same thing in the end. But I do give it points for trying to be different for a while, and it wasn't a complete waste of time for me. And as somebody who hates slasher movies, probably the best one I've seen for a while. But you know, in the end, it didn't quite get there for me. So 2.5 out of 5.
Okay, right. Fair enough. Adam, you want to go next?
Sure, I can go next. Cool. I'm giving this a 3.5, so a full star ahead of Nate. I really liked the comedy that came out of this. I think a lot of the famous slasher movies have a little bit, but not a ton. And I found the whole first half to be hilarious. I found the creep factor to be like cranked up to 11 here. I was definitely grossed out at a lot of not just the horror, or not just the deaths, but just the other things that are going on. The scene you just mentioned, Dylan, of the alligator at the beginning, I was like, oh shit, here it comes. They did a great job at just making me be like, it's right there. Just don't. So I really thought that was expertly done. It's A24, so of course you're going to get a higher quality of those types of scenes than your standard slasher type movie. I thought the acting was phenomenal, not just the porn scenes, obviously.
Not complaining about those.
Yeah, great. Loved it.
Good performances all around.
Yeah, Kid Cudi especially. I thought he did a great job. I haven't. Yeah, fantastic job for him. I haven't seen him do a lot of stuff, so to get him in a serious-ish role and kind of just let him like show us what he has, I thought was really cool. And I can't wait to see him in more stuff. So a 3.5 for me. I really liked it.
All right, awesome. Then it's on to me. I will also be giving this a 3.5. I think it's just better than your average slasher horror movie. It's fun, start to ending. It's got those performances by the leads that we talked about. It also has Kid Cudi, who does a really good job. The score is really good, classic kind of A24 tension building, but a little more dark and more of a slasher vibe. In general, it just feels like this is a throwback to more of a date night. Let's go see a scary movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes Hereditary and Midsummer actually doesn't fit that very well. It's like, sometimes you just want, to turn your brain off a little bit. You get jump scares, you get sex scenes, you get grisly deaths, you get some humor, you get kind of some false, like, oh, is she gonna, oh no, she isn't, like, you get a little back and forth. I like the ending, just as far as the way it was shot and framed and kind of what actually happens at the end. I did like, and I just felt like it was a fun throwback, and especially when they cut to the ending credits, just the way they did that, it was like, oh yeah, like that was a big wink to the audience, like they were here to have fun, they hope that we had fun. Like it kind of it's a charming slasher movie, if that can exist. I found it to be. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'd liken it to a less campy version of Cabin in the Woods.
A little bit, but also there definitely is some camp, and some of the more boundary pushing stuff towards the end it feels like kind of your classic, like a lot of horror movies, they go a little too far. There's always like one moment where it's just like eye roll, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this one did it too, and they were like, yep, we're doing this. I don't know. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
I think that it was bordering on a 4, but I also like the stuff you mentioned, Nate, with just the transition and kind of leaving some story points behind and never going back to them. But still 3.5, very good. And I liked it.
Yeah.
All right. Was there anything else, or is it my turn to put a wrap on the show?
Take it away.
All right. You want to be a true friend to them? Be honest and unmerciful.